Hi, this is Timothy Carroll from Carroll Consultancy Group, and we're bringing to you Mr. Matt Walden, a master's in osteopathic medicine. And some of you may have been watching his first and second session. Matt has worked with some amazing football teams like Chelsea. He travels the world teaching for the Czech Institute, and has written a number of professional articles and for various medical texts. Great to have you back, Matt. Today we're going to be chatting about principle number 3 of the 6 foundational health principles, which is move right.
Right. Fantastic. Well, thank you for inviting me, Timothy. Yeah, absolutely. So to move right. So this is, of course, I guess a real sort of question mark over what does that actually mean. And really, the reality is that any movement is good for the human body, more or less. I mean, there's a phrase that's used, which is that there's no such thing as a bad exercise, just a badly prescribed exercise. But even the concept of exercise is something that's come into question recently, because it's not so much about actually exercising in terms of going to the gym or going out for a run or whatever. It's actually about building movement into your day. So can you take a phone call when you're on a walk, for example? Can you build in some exercise by walking up and down the steps to go and get lunch rather than sitting at your desk and just having the lunch there, or taking a walk before you eat, or after you eat, whatever. Building some movement in, and that's absolutely crucial for many different aspects of human function, from things like re-regulating the breathing pattern, which we talked about in the previous session. So that the walking is essentially what could be called an attractor state. So it creates a harmonic rhythm that allows you to sort of calm the whole system down and to integrate the breathing pattern back from what often is quite a fight, flight, go, achieve, hit the deadline kind of state, down into a calmer, more relaxed state. And what that does is it has a superb sort of calming effect on the overall physiology, which helps with digestion, which we talked about in the first one, eating right. But also actually with cognitive functions. So one of the things that we know is that when you're stressed out, you tend to move into more of a left mode, dominant way of being, which means you strategize and you try and compartmentalize things and organize and work out what's going on. But sometimes you miss the bigger picture, which is the right mode dominant. So the right mode of the brain is more contextual. Now, when we go out for a walk, what it does, it integrates the two hemispheres. You have to integrate two hemispheres with each step that you take, because you're crossing or you're doing what's called a crossed extensor pattern with every step you take. So we know that walking is one of the most potent things for activating the brain and getting the brain to work well. So that's just a kind of a sample of how movement can be helpful.
Incredible. And nowadays 1/3 of the planet is locked up at home. And so
two-thirds, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 2/3 of that. So it's crazy. We're all isolated. We're battling with isolation, and we are allowed to get out and exercise. So how would you recommend people move right to support their cognitive function, to support their emotional well-being in these special times?
Well, just things like sweeping the floor, vacuuming the house, mowing the lawn, doing a bit of DIY, doing a bit of gardening, if you have those things accessible to you, are all very helpful from a movement perspective. And, from things like optimizing blood sugar levels, optimizing fluid dynamics in the body, so keeping the system pumping, which is absolutely critical for immune function. So, we're obviously very aware of COVID-19 at the moment. Well, if you sit still all day, that's one of the things that is really going to compromise your immune system. So to move around as much as you can, whether it's pottering around the house or actually getting out for a walk or out for a run, whatever's available to you. We do have a series of movement patterns in the Czech system that we call the primal movement patterns. And so the idea of them is that they're really the kind of common denominators of almost any movement pattern that you could conceptualize. And so the six core primal movement patterns are to squat, to bend, to push, to pull, to twist, and to lunge. So with those six components in mind, and then we say the seventh is gait, and gait can be broken down into walking gait, running gait, and sprinting gait. Okay.
Got it.
So the six plus gait, if you like. So if you were to build those into, a home exercise program, or just to think about how you might use them, for example, you bend when you're doing the washing up, so that could be a bend pattern. You push when you're mowing the lawn, so that's a push pattern. You pull when you're perhaps, I don't know, picking up a child, or you're moving things. You're going to be pulling, as in lifting things up. So those are just, I think, some useful concepts to get you thinking about how the body can and should move. And in terms of moving right, ideally you want a skilled eye to look and say, oh yeah, you're squatting really well there. That's a good squat pattern. But when you bend, perhaps you let your knees roll in, or you let your back round out, or whatever. And so just a skilled eye can say, well, you could improve that movement pattern by doing it this way, or by strengthening this muscle, or stretching that muscle, or mobilizing this joint. So that's where, like I say, a little bit of skilled help could be beneficial in terms of moving right.
Excellent. So for all the millions of people out there that are working from home, if they were to, they're sitting at their desks, they're not used to working remotely, what would be some good advice for all of those people out there to build movement into their working day now that they're at home and working remotely? Any thoughts, recommendations on that?
Yeah, so one thing I would say is that really to move early in the day is very helpful. So to get up and move. So if at the moment in the UK, for example, we're allowed out of our houses for 1 hour per day. So that would be an ideal time to use that hour. So you get up, you get out, go for a walk, go for a run, go for a bike ride, whatever you're able and willing to do. And that is going to be the perfect time to do it, because it's when your system is naturally in a fight-flight state. So in other words, you don't really feel like sitting down and concentrating and being still, physiologically speaking. Okay. So although you might have a big, long to-do list and you want to get through it, you're probably going to get easily distracted. You're probably going to feel agitated. But if you go out and walk for the first hour of the day, or exercise, or whatever works for you, then that will get rid of some of that fight-flight element of your natural cycle. And you'll feel good because you've exercised. You'll feel like, I've done that job, if you like, but you'll also feel like the blood will have moved through the system. You'll feel more energized, your brain will feel more integrated, and you'll be ready for your day of work. So that's one tip, is to say, get started with some movement. But then I would also say, you want to move regularly. You want to at the very least get up from your seat and move around the house, once every 30 to 40 minutes, possibly even more than that if feasible. But depends what your line of work is. Like I say, taking phone calls, not sat down, but get your headset on, go and walk around the house, walk around the garden, go out for a walk if you're allowed to. And in business, I think this is a great thing that we're able to do in this day and age, is we can take meetings. We've got our diary on our phones, we've got our emails on our phones, we've got internet access on the phone. So we can walk with the phone, and we've got access to everything we need, and we can have a proper business meeting whilst getting the vitamin D from the sunlight, whilst getting the pumping and the movement through the body. So I absolutely think that's a key thing for people to start to build in, as well as things like team meetings as well. Actually having a meeting with people rather than sitting around a desk. Go for a walk, talk it through.
That's made a big difference to my work. 80% of my work is remote, even before the crisis that we're in right now. And I bought myself a desk that you can lift up, and that's made a huge difference for me. So just quickly to wrap up this call about moving right. We've talked about eating right and breathing right, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how does moving right and making sure these 6 patterns plus gait are built into our everyday How does that help us with the actual breathing and the eating right side of things?
And the eating. Yeah. Well, we can look at it in all directions. So, eating right gives you the fuel that you actually want to move. You feel like you have the energy to move.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But then when you move right, what it does is it facilitates digestion. So if you were to sit still all day long and not move, that's actually going to quite compromise your digestion, because the digestive system likes the pumping action of being moved. Now, of course, it doesn't want to be pumped hard all day long. So if you went for a run for a whole day, it wouldn't like that, right? But if you went for a walk for an hour, then that gentle pumping motion creates mechanical stimulus. Or you go and do some squats. Squatting is very important for digestion, because it actually helps to compress the abdominal cavity and move the food around through the digestive tract. So definitely exercise can facilitate digestion, and therefore, because you could be eating exactly the right things but not digesting them. So that's one way. Also, you get what's called a parasympathetic rebound, which is essentially a relaxation response after you've exercised. So then that helps in digestion and repair. From a breathing perspective, essentially, you've got to be able to hold your body upright to be able to get a full inhalation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, what you find is that they can't hold themselves upright, and they'll be like this. They're kind of rounded through the back, forward through their heads, and there they are tapping away at their keyboard all day, or taking phone calls like this. And when they stand, they do the same thing. So you should be able to hold yourself up without any real effort, and that allows a full excursion of inhalation, allows you to lift through what's called the front panel here, or the sternum, to get a full inhalation. So by moving right and allowing the body to have the right mobility to move right, then you can breathe right. But also by breathing right, again, it gives you the right energy balance to want to move, and it allows you to, you breathe 24,000 times a day, somewhere between 19 and 25,000 is the normal sort of range. But the point being that if with each breath you're breathing right and you're lifting up through here, that's going to facilitate optimal function, not just of the chest and the thoracic spine, but also of the neck and the abdominal wall, because the abdominal wall is involved in breathing as well. So everyone's concerned about having ripped abs and a toned tummy. If you breathe right, that's going to be a huge thing that facilitates that, and then helps you to move right.
Excellent, mate. Excellent. So I can see that it's all building into a positive spiral, right? That one is supporting the other, and we're supporting optimum immune function, optimum function of the body and the cognitive side. So awesome. This was excellent. So we've talked about eat right, we've talked about breathe right, we've touched on moving right, and the next subject is going to be what are we going to be talking about next time?
We're going to talk about let's see. So eat, move, breathe. We've got to sleep right.
Correct.
I think is the next one.
Yep, sleeping right. Excellent, mate. So I'm looking forward to that one, and we'll talk again soon. We'll address sleeping. Huge one right now.
Excellent. Big one. Yeah, for sure.
Talk to you soon, mate.
Okay.
Bye.
Cheers for now. Bye-bye.